Hello, and welcome to Why Did My Builder Do That? The weekly podcast that will answer your questions about home design, home building, and much more. Of course, we will be asking, why did my builder do that? But sometimes we will ask, why didn't my builder do that? Or, will my builder do that? Or even, does my builder know about this? Each week, we will tackle new questions and hopefully provide insight into designing, choosing a builder, building, financing, and even maintaining or remodeling a home. From time to time, we will be looking at why or how something went wrong, but we will be asking about new building products and new building techniques. Along the way, we will also be talking about building standards and warranties. We invite you to email us questions, and we will make every effort to include them in future podcasts, or at the least, we will send back information or a comment on your questions. Email us at WDMBDT@gmail.com. Why would my builder do that? Join us now for Why Did My Builder Do That?
Hello and welcome to Why Did My Builder Do That? Once again, we are going to talk about many different things today. And we're hosted by Gary Dunn and myself,
Hello.
Joe Bronson. And we have a very special guest today, Jon Melchi, who is the Executive Director of the BIA of Central Ohio. And he comes to us with a wealth of knowledge about both for customers and for builders and so on, that he's going to provide us with a tremendous amount of information that can help us about the building industry here in our town, our region, and this area of Central Ohio. So Jon, welcome. Appreciate you being here. We'll have a few questions today that we'll have for you. But before we start down that path, do you mind just sharing with us a little bit about yourself and the BIA itself?
Yeah, and thank you very much for having me. So the BIA has been around for over 80 years, representing the residential construction industry here into the Central Ohio region. And I've been fortunate enough to be the executive director of the organization for a little over 6 years of those 80 years. And our membership is made up of home builders and basically anybody who helps in the home building process in Central Ohio. And that can be anybody from real estate agents to title agents to bankers to contractors, plumbers, electricians, and all of the supply houses that help supply our job sites with what they need to be built, and of course the builders who oversee all those projects. So we're fortunate to have just about 500 member companies here in the Central Ohio region that support this industry, and we like to say we represent just about 95% of the single family build market here in Central Ohio, and probably a little more than 70% of the multifamily builders in this region as well.
Wow, that's I'd have to say that's pretty impressive. So when I think about the BIA, it just kind of begs the question you just explained to some degree, but what are some of the benefits that the builders receive for being members of the BIA?
Yeah, there's a handful that I think are kind of our tried and true core benefits. One is that we offer what is recognized as the preeminent contract for home building and residential construction and remodeling in the region, one that has stood the test of time. And it's a fantastic contract put together by the Isaac Wiles law firm, and we've used it for many years. And what it does is spells out clearly that process of home construction and remodeling for the builder and the homeowner. And we find that it's supported very strongly by our lenders in this market. So that's one of the first things that we often point to. Additionally, we have up to the minute knowledge. The home building and residential construction industry is one with a lot of moving parts, and our job is to make sure that our members are aware of those parts as they're moving. Listen, we have a lot of small businesses here that are working really hard to meet the needs of their customers. They don't have time to monitor all the newest regulations and rules that come out from from our government partners, and that's part of our job is to monitor those and make sure that our membership is aware of those so that they can change and modify what they do, and make sure that all of our homes are up to code and meeting the needs of today's consumer. We also have a lot of savings partners programs, partnership with Associated Insurance, which provides strong builders risk coverage so that if anything were to happen on a job site, that our folks are protected, homes are protected, the consumer's protected, and Associated Insurance does a great job for us, making sure that our builders are able to operate efficiently. And we also have a premier workers' comp program that allows our members to pool their resources together to get a more effective rate. The construction industry is a tough one to get workers' comp coverage on. Through the partnership with the BIA, you're able to pool your risk together with everyone and get a lower rate. And then, and this one can't be quantified, but there is something uniquely American about associations and about our willingness as professionals to get together and network and talk about best practices. And that's one of the things that the BIA has really hung its hat on for 80 years, and something we're going to continue doing. We are the place for the building community to get together and talk about the challenges and successes that exist in the Central Ohio market today.
Well, I'm going to echo a couple of things there. I was a longtime BIA member as a builder, which I'm no longer building, but until the BIA contract came around, every deal had 2 weeks of going back and forth with attorneys modifying language. And once that contract came on board, I think the legal community recognized it as an excellent document, and I never had to make a change to a contract after that. So really appreciated that. And the other aspects, certainly I would echo strongly of how those benefit a builder for sure. John, what are some of the requirements to become a builder or an associate with the BIA? How many hoops do I have to jump through to be a member?
It's pretty simple process, but we ask that our folks have been in business for a year or so more. Sometimes we'll have a builder come in from out of market, and we're able to waive that because of a track record in another market where they are operating in. But to have been in business for a year or more and have all the proper bonding and such, so that folks know that they could be protected. Then there's a holding period before approvals are officially done. And it gives our board of directors a chance to review applications and make sure that everybody is in the right spot where they should be. And sometimes we get somebody who applies in the wrong category, and that happens occasionally when you have multiple members of builder categories. And for our associates, it's just that you're serving the residential development community here in Central Ohio, and it's pretty easy to do. You can go online and click join now, and it'll tell you that information up there. We do have a code of ethics that we expect our members to adhere to, and that's something that the public can then have confidence knowing that if they're partnering with a BIA member, that's something that's been upheld, and we've been proud to stand behind that code for some time.
Fantastic. How would you typify the BIA benefiting the home buying public?
Yeah, I'd say a handful of ways that we do so. Number one, you can be assured that those using the contract and best practices of the BIA are operating at the highest level of the industry, and that's something that we feel strongly about. We also have worked on our warranty book that clearly spells out for the home buyer kind of what that process is. We have a professional standards committee at the BIA, which is there's a dispute with the homeowner, and listen, this happens, and where maybe the homeowner thinks that something should look one way and the builder may view it a little differently. We have an independent committee out there that comes and makes sure that it meets the minimum standards, qualifying standards as set by the state of Ohio, and they do that independently, and that's something that we think is of strong value to the home buyer, because they know that if they go through our process that they're going to get fair treatment. Additionally, our contract offers non-binding arbitration, which we think is a good way to provide value and save the homeowner money at the end of the day. And again, when you talk about a BIA builder, you're talking about somebody who's in contact with a lot of other folks in this industry who's committed to using the best supply houses and tradespeople around, and with somebody who's constantly trying to work on their craft. And that's why we've been around for 80 years, and we hope to be around for another 80.
Well, Gary, I'd like to piggyback onto that question as well, and that is, John, when it comes to that unpleasant situation where a builder and a home buyer disagree, what is their process when it comes to contacting the BIA? Is the BIA involved in that claim process? Can you describe a little bit about that?
Yeah, our professional standards committee has a pretty set process, and that is an application. Usually, builder has per contract a year to remedy any warranty issues that come up, and that may seem like a long time, but when you consider that most mortgages are 20, 30 years, that's not really that long of a time. And as we especially found out during kind of the COVID issue, sometimes materials are challenging to get, and if there's an issue with a certain material, it may take a little while to get that under control. But if at the end of this year of a year somebody has an issue, they can file a claim with our professional standards committee for a small fee, which the builder also matches. An independent committee will come out there and take a look at the issues that have been cited and rule whether they meet the minimum standards or they don't. We don't require to tell the builder necessarily how to fix an issue. That's up to the builder to do that if there is an issue. And sometimes builders are the issue is the builder's challenge, and sometimes it meets the standards as set by the state of Ohio, and we try to move forward. But the folks who participate in that committee, and it was started out by Dave Wickline many years ago, and Dave Wickline Jr. still participates with that committee. It's currently chaired by Vince Galoni of Galoni Custom Builders. They take it very seriously. This is not something that they do or a buddy system, and they're very thorough and they're very detailed, and their reputation is at stake. So they don't really want to mess around with being seen as buddy with a builder and just checking a box. That's not how this process works at all. They have a set of standards that they want to meet, and they'll take a look at it. But I like to think at the end of the day, if everybody is equally angry, then we've probably done our job, and that's what happens oftentimes.
That's a good standard to set, and you just mentioned some really strong names in our area here, so it's good to know that we've got some very competent individuals that are in that process to help the home buyers through the process and so on, so they don't feel as if they're ganged up on. It's a very fair process, it sounds like. Well, I'll tell you, John, that brings me to another question that I've got, and that has to do with something that I think a lot of our viewers and listeners out there are aware of, and that is the parade of homes. I think we all know that the BIA has been key with displaying and showing homes that are just out of this world. And I think we're all aware that there's been a few changes over the last several years, specifically because of COVID. But how does the parade of homes work at this point right now for our viewers to get excited about coming out and seeing that yet again this year?
Yeah, BIA's Parade of Homes has existed for over 70 years. And when you go back and you look, was the Parade of Homes created 70 years ago? It was to connect home buyers with builders and educate the public on the home building process. For many, many years, that's kind of the way it operated, pretty standard. Probably in the last 20 years, the homes moved from what we would call more everyday attainable housing into our higher end custom build homes that existed in the Central Ohio market. And lots of people came out for many years to see that, and we're grateful for that to have taken place. But even pre-COVID, there was a trend of moving away from a single site home tour. And part of the reason that occurred is it is increasingly difficult for developers to get land for smaller builders to build on. And that's one of the biggest challenges that the BIA faces here. So every time you turn on the news or you open the paper, if you still get a physical paper, you listen to the radio or a podcast like this, and you hear about a project or a zoning that gets voted down because residents don't want it. Every time that happens, it makes it more difficult for the next project to happen. And what has happened is all independent land developers who used to sell lots to a lot of our smaller custom builders are no longer in existence. The NIMBY attitude combined with regulatory challenges and lending challenges have made it very difficult for small developers or smaller private developers to work. So those sites that we had for many years to host a parade of homes on, they don't exist in the same way. And that was a trend that was coming. And kind of with COVID and everything else that happened, it made us reassess what we were doing. So we moved a couple years ago to a scattered site format, which was one that is being done really across the country. Our old single site format was kind of an outlier in many markets. When you look at Minneapolis and you look at Raleigh and you look at Charlotte, they all have a scattered site tour. Orlando's is going on this week. And what it does, our region is growing. When we were simply building in certain parts of the region, specifically Delaware County, where 8 of the last 10 parade of homes were prior to us moving to this format, we're building all around the central Ohio region, from Buckeye Lake to Pickaway County, Madison County, over to Licking County, up to Delaware. Heck, we've got homes in Knox County and Franklin County inside of 270. We wanted our builders to have the ability to show their homes where they're building them. Not for us to say, if you want to participate in this great event, you have to build in this certain development under these certain conditions. If you're building a spec house in Lithopolis, have at it. Canal Winchester, we had Heitmeyer Design Build had one in Canal Winchester this past year. This allows our builders to build where they're building and to showcase that product. The other point I'll make is, because we were in Delaware County and or Jerome Village in the alternating 2 years where we weren't in Delaware County, I sat at the front entrance many years, and people would come up and they'd say, "This is great, but I'm from Pickerington, and none of these builders will build there, or there's nothing like this where what can we see in our market?" So it allows us to provide homes and access to properties where people want to live. And our BIA our BIAparade.com website, you can do a search by school district if that's your most important thing that you care about. How many bedrooms, what type of product. And it just allows us to showcase the entire region and the entire range of product that we have. Our product is not just limited to $1 million and up. We have everything from apartments to entry-level housing and all price points in between. And again, that's to get back to our original mission of connecting builders to consumers. And I understand for a lot of people, I get their emails, I get their social media posts. They are mad that we don't have the same format. And I understand that it was a great format. We thank them for their support, but it's just not reflective of our market or where things are today. And we had to shift to where the ball is going, not where it's been. And we're excited to be able to continue to connect the public to our membership through our new parade of homes.
And when will the parade of homes be this coming year, this summer?
Yeah, it'll be, and we've moved, we've kind of settled into the middle end of September. It'll start, and we typically are operating from a Thursday through a Sunday. We used to, under our old format, we were open 7 days a week for 2 weeks, and what we found was that's asking an awful lot of our builders to basically put their businesses on hold for those few weeks, and we're finding that most of the traffic is coming in those Thursday through Sunday, and we have really increased our digital presence so that people could take a look at these homes and have an idea of what they're going to see before they even have to walk through the door, which is reflective of what today's consumer wants. So it lives year round on BIAparade.com. You can see all the homes that were in there last year, and they'll be up for a couple more months before we take them down and get ready for this year. And it will tell you just about everything you need to know.
So that's BIAparade.com.
That's it.
Perfect. So they can just jump on there and see what's going on and follow you guys.
It is this is the way our consumers are finding information today. We still have a fantastic media partner in City Scene magazine. They have a digital book that there are a lot of people who love the old plan books that we have. We still have something very, very similar to that. And if you go to City Scene magazine and search Parade of Homes, you can find our digital plan book. I believe it was looked at more than 100,000 times last year. So people go to that, they look at it, and check out what's available in our market.
Well, I'm kind of old school. I still have my handbook from 2006 when I built a home in the Parade.
Yeah.
And I've got that as my, I don't have it up on in a framed plaque, if you will, but I know where to get to it. So it's I still love paper in today's times. So well, that's great news about the Parade. It'll be exciting again this year to see things go on.
Well, John, you have given me ideas for more podcasts based around the BIA. So hopefully you'd consider joining us again in the future, and we could specifically would like to delve into maybe a whole podcast on the Standards Committee, and maybe even have one of the members of the Standards Committee with us to kind of talk about that process, because I think that was specifically one that really impacts people the greatest. And I know some of the other things that go on that help benefit people, the zoning issues and that sort of things. We could maybe spend 10 hours talking about those things, but we appreciate it. And I'm just going to give you a couple of seconds to just kind of wrap up your thoughts on the BIA and the future of the BIA, which based on me having known you for a few years now, and knowing we're in good hands with you at the stewardship of the BIA. But we'll
Gary
let you wrap up things.
Gary and Joe, I appreciate that, and I'll echo what Gary just mentioned there. And this relates to what we do for the home buyer as well and the consumer. Our organization understands the impact of how much our regulations and government impacts the home building process, and in many cases increases the cost to our consumers. So we fight every day to make sure that those costs are managed appropriately, so that as many people that want to buy a house in this market can. Today as I sit here, it is 48% of people in Central Ohio can afford to buy any home, and about 24% can afford to buy a new home. And that's too low. And when you have a market that's growing like ours, those numbers should be increasing. So we work every day to make sure that as many people in Central Ohio have access to adequate housing. And, we exist to support this industry, and it is a great industry, one that provides people an essential item, which is housing, and one that puts thousands of people in our region to work. And we're proud to represent everybody in all aspects of the residential construction and development process. And we've done so for 80 years. Our hope is that we get to do it for another 80. We have a lot of opportunity in Central Ohio that other parts of our state and of the Midwest are envious of. But we've got to make sure that we deliver on those opportunities. And this organization, we wake up every day trying to figure out how we can build an adequate number of houses to the highest standard possible in Central Ohio. And we're going to keep doing that. So if you're in this industry and you want to be a part of that mission, we'd love to have you join this association. If you're a consumer, you can rest assured if you're working with a BIA member that you're working with the best. And we're proud to represent them all. And I appreciate you guys having me on today.
I really appreciate you being here with us. And I'll piggyback on what Gary said, and having you at the helm as the executive director of the BIA, Jon Melchi, certainly is a huge advantage for home buyers and builders and other associates in our industry. The passion and the compassion that you have, it just absolutely comes out, and it's a treat to be a part of the organization and to have you at the helm. So that gives us to the point that we are at the end of our episode today. I think Gary and I could probably fire another 1,000 questions at you, but you've got to go back to doing all those great things at the BIA that you do. So we'll end up leaving you be. But for all of those folks that are out viewing today, please stay tuned for our next podcast that we'll have. We may not have as a spectacular guest the next time as we did today, but we'll have other folks join us, and we'd invite you to send us emails for questions, comments, and what have you, and you can send that to WDMBDT@gmail.com. If you don't remember that, just hit our podcast on our website, and you'll be able to see what that email address is, and hopefully you'll send something in and we'll build and create a podcast around your question or comment. But until the next time, from me, Joe Bronson, my co-host, Gary Dunn, and again, our special guest, Jon Melchi, we hope you have a great week. And until next time, enjoy.
Thanks, everybody.